At the airport, my boss told me to fly coach while he boarded first class. He didn't expect me to board as a new partner instead. My name is Marcus Chun, and this is the story of how one humiliating moment at LAX airport changed everything about my career and taught me that sometimes the biggest opportunities come disguised as the worst betrayals. It was a rainy Tuesday morning in Los Angeles when everything fell apart, or so I thought. The California sky was gray and heavy, matching the weight I felt in my chest as I stood in Terminal 3 holding my boarding pass. After 5 years of working 80-hour weeks at Morrison & Associates, one of the city's most prestigious consulting firms, I thought I had earned some respect. I was wrong. If you're enjoying this story of workplace justice, please subscribe to our channel to help us bring you more real stories like this one. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love connecting with viewers from around the world. I had been promoted to senior associate just 6 months earlier, a position that came with promises of better treatment and recognition. The promotion meant longer hours, more responsibility, and supposedly more respect from management. David Morrison, the firm's founder and my direct boss, had personally congratulated me when I closed the Henderson account, bringing in $2.5 million in revenue. That handshake in his corner office felt like validation of all those late nights and missed family dinners. The Henderson deal had been particularly challenging. Their company was hemorrhaging money due to inefficient supply chain management, and 3 other consulting firms had failed to solve their problems. I spent countless weekends analyzing their logistics data, identifying bottlenecks that previous consultants had missed, and developing a comprehensive restructuring plan that would save them 40% on operational costs, while actually improving delivery times. When I presented my findings to Henderson's executive team, they were initially skeptical. The previous consultants had promised similar results and failed to deliver. But my analysis was thorough, backed by hard data, and included detailed implementation timelines with measurable milestones. I had anticipated every question, prepared for every objection, and presented solutions that were both innovative and practical. The breakthrough came when I identified a critical flaw in their warehouse distribution system. Instead of the traditional hub-and-spoke model that other consultants had recommended, I proposed a dynamic routing system that would adjust in real time based on inventory levels and demand patterns. It was risky because it required significant technological upgrades, but the potential savings were enormous. Henderson's CEO, Richard Henderson himself, was impressed enough to implement the full plan. Within 3 months, they were seeing the projected savings, and their delivery times had improved by 60%. The success of the Henderson account put Morrison & Associates on the map as a firm that could solve problems others couldn't. Morrison used that success to win new clients, expand the firm, and establish himself as one of the premier consultants on the West Coast. What he didn't mention in interviews or at industry conferences was that the entire strategy had been my creation. The business trip to New York was supposed to be my chance to shine. We were pitching to Meridian Industries, a Fortune 500 company looking to restructure their entire West Coast operations. The contract was worth $15 million, and Morrison had specifically requested that I lead the technical presentation. I had spent 3 weeks preparing, analyzing data, creating projections, and rehearsing every slide until I could present it in my sleep. Meridian Industries was facing a complex challenge that reminded me of the Henderson situation, but on a much larger scale. They had operations in 12 states across the West Coast, from Washington to California, with over 50,000 employees and hundreds of facilities. Their current organizational structure was a patchwork of acquisitions and mergers that had never been properly integrated. Departments were duplicated across regions, communication systems were incompatible, and nobody had a clear picture of the overall efficiency metrics. I had spent weeks diving deep into their financial reports, operational data, and employee satisfaction surveys. The picture that emerged was of a company with incredible potential that was being held back by organizational chaos. My analysis showed that they could reduce operational costs by 35% while actually improving productivity and employee satisfaction through strategic restructuring and technology integration. The technical presentation I had prepared was comprehensive, covering everything from high-level strategic recommendations to detailed implementation timelines. I had created financial projections showing exactly how much money they would save in each quarter over the next 3 years. I had identified key performance indicators that would allow them to track progress in real time. Most importantly, I had developed a change management strategy that would minimize disruption to their day-to-day operations while implementing the new structure. Morrison had reviewed my work multiple times over the past 3 weeks, offering suggestions and feedback that I incorporated into the final presentation. Or at least that's what I thought was happening. Now I was beginning to wonder if those review sessions had been about something else entirely. That morning, as commuters rushed past us in the busy terminal, Morrison appeared next to me at the gate. He was impeccably dressed as always, his silver hair perfectly styled, carrying his leather briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But something was different about his demeanor. He looked nervous, almost agitated, which was unusual for a man who commanded boardrooms with the confidence of someone who had never known failure. LAX airport was bustling with the usual Tuesday morning energy. Business travelers in expensive suits hurried between gates, dragging their rolling luggage behind them. The coffee shops were packed with people grabbing their caffeine fix before early flights. Departure announcements echoed through the terminal in multiple languages, creating a constant background hum of activity. The energy was infectious, the kind that comes from being surrounded by people pursuing important goals and chasing big opportunities. I had arrived at the gate early, as was my habit for important business trips. I liked to review my presentation materials one last time, to go through my notes and make sure everything was organized and accessible. The Meridian pitch represented everything I had been working toward for 5 years, a chance to demonstrate my capabilities on a major account, to prove that I deserved a seat at the table with the senior partners, to finally get the recognition that had always seemed just out of reach. Morrison's nervousness was putting me on edge. In 5 years of working together, I had seen him handle difficult clients, hostile takeover negotiations, and crisis management situations with unshakable composure. He was the kind of person who seemed to thrive under pressure, who became more confident and decisive when the stakes were highest. This agitated version of David Morrison was completely unfamiliar to me. "Marcus, there's been a change of plans," he said, not meeting my eyes as passengers began boarding around us. The announcement for first-class passengers echoed through the gate area, and I watched as business travelers in expensive suits lined up at the priority boarding lane. "What kind of change?" I asked, though something in his tone already told me I wasn't going to like the answer. The pit in my stomach grew heavier as I noticed he was fidgeting with his boarding pass, something I had never seen him do before. "You're going to have to fly coach today. Corporate decided to cut costs and, well, you understand. It's just one flight." His words came out quickly, like he wanted to get them over with as fast as possible. He still wouldn't look directly at me, instead focusing on something over my shoulder. I looked down at my boarding pass. Seat 3A. First class. The same first-class ticket the company had always provided for important business trips. The same level of service that Morrison himself enjoyed, that all senior associates were entitled to according to company policy. Something wasn't right. "But David, this is the Meridian pitch. We discussed how important this presentation is. I need to be fresh and prepared when we land." I tried to keep my voice steady, professional, even though confusion and hurt were building inside me. Morrison finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood run cold. It wasn't embarrassment or guilt. It was something else entirely. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Marcus, you're going to have to trust me on this one. Take the coach seat. I'll see you at the hotel." He turned to walk toward the first-class boarding line, leaving me standing there with growing anger and humiliation. Other passengers were staring now, probably wondering why a grown man was being publicly demoted at an airport gate. The California rain continued to streak down the floor-to-ceiling windows, and I felt as gray and stormy as the weather outside. The humiliation was overwhelming. Here I was, a senior associate at a prestigious consulting firm, being told to move to coach like some entry-level employee who had made a mistake. But worse than the public embarrassment was the growing realization that this wasn't about cost-cutting at all. Morrison's behavior, his nervous energy, his refusal to meet my eyes, it all pointed to something more calculated and deliberate. I thought about all the times Morrison had taken credit for my work in client meetings, introducing my ideas as our approach or the Morrison methodology. I remembered the industry conference where he presented the Henderson case study without mentioning my name once, accepting congratulations and accolades for strategies I had developed. I recalled the board meetings where my analysis was presented as his insights, my recommendations as his strategic vision. For 5 years, I had rationalized this behavior as normal workplace dynamics. Senior partners always got credit for their team's work, I told myself. That was just how consulting firms operated. I was being compensated for my efforts through my salary and bonuses, and my turn for recognition would come eventually. But standing in that airport terminal, watching Morrison walk away with what looked like relief on his face, I finally understood that my turn was never going to come. That's when I heard my name being called from behind me. Marcus Chen? Marcus Chen from Morrison and Associates. I turned to see a woman in an elegant navy suit approaching me. She was probably in her 50s, with short auburn hair and the kind of confident stride that immediately commanded attention. Her smile was warm but professional, the kind that came from years of high-level business negotiations. I'm Sarah Whitfield, managing partner at Whitfield, Sterling and Partners in New York. I've been hoping to run into you. She extended her hand, and I shook it, still confused about what was happening. The name was familiar. Whitfield, Sterling and Partners was one of the most respected consulting firms on the East Coast, known for poaching top talent from competitors. Ms. Whitfield, it's a pleasure to meet you, but I'm not sure how you know who I am. I glanced over at Morrison, who had stopped in the first-class line and was now watching our conversation with what looked like panic in his eyes. Oh, Marcus. Everyone in our industry knows about the Henderson account. Brilliant work. Absolutely brilliant. The way you restructured their supply chain while maintaining their employee retention rate was textbook genius. We've been watching your career for some time now. My mind was racing. I had never met Sarah Whitfield before, but her reputation preceded her. She was known for building one of the most successful consulting practices in the country by focusing on employee development and innovative solutions. Her firm was everything that Morrison and Associates claimed to be but never actually was. Whitfield, Sterling and Partners had been making headlines in industry publications for their unconventional approach to consulting. Instead of the traditional model where senior partners hoarded client relationships and junior associates did the grunt work without recognition, they operated more like a true partnership. Everyone who contributed to a project was recognized and credited. Profit sharing was transparent and equitable. Work-life balance wasn't just a recruiting slogan. It was an actual company policy. I had read about their innovative project management approach in Harvard Business Review just a few months earlier. They used collaborative methodologies that ensured every team member had input into strategy development. They had implemented technology platforms that tracked individual contributions to projects, making it impossible for senior partners to claim credit for work they hadn't done. Most revolutionary of all, they regularly promoted associates to partner level based on merit rather than politics or tenure. The company culture at Whitfield, Sterling and Partners was legendary in the industry. They had a 95% employee retention rate, which was virtually unheard of in consulting. Their client satisfaction scores were consistently the highest in the industry. They attracted top talent from competitors by offering not just competitive compensation, but actual respect and recognition for individual contributions. Sarah Whitfield herself was something of a legend. She had started her career at one of the big traditional consulting firms, where she experienced many of the same frustrations I was feeling at Morrison and Associates. Instead of accepting the status quo, she had left to start her own firm with the specific goal of creating a better model for how consulting could work. The fact that she was now one of the most successful consultants in the country proved that her approach wasn't just idealistic, it was profitable. That's very kind of you to say, I replied, still trying to process why one of the most powerful women in consulting was talking to me at LAX airport. Are you heading to New York as well? I am indeed. Business class, unfortunately, couldn't get first class on such short notice. But listen, I have a proposition for you. She glanced around the busy gate area, then continued. I know this might seem sudden, but we have an opening for a partner position in our Los Angeles office. Full partnership, equity stake, your own team. We've been hoping to find the right person. Someone with your background and expertise. The words hit me like a physical blow. Partner. Not senior associate, not junior partner, but full partner at one of the most prestigious firms in the country. Everything I had been working toward for 5 years. Everything Morrison had dangled in front of me like a carrot I could never quite reach. I'm flattered, Ms. Whitfield, but I'm actually on my way to a major presentation with my current firm, the Meridian Industries account. I looked back toward Morrison, who was now openly staring at our conversation, his face pale. Sarah's expression changed slightly, a knowing look crossing her features. Ah yes, Meridian Industries. $15 million contract. Restructuring their West Coast operations. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Marcus, can I ask you something? Who developed the core strategy for that pitch? I did. I spent the last 3 weeks analyzing their current structure and developing a comprehensive restructuring plan. It's probably the best work I've ever done. And who's presenting it to the client? Well, Morrison and I are presenting together, but I'm handling the technical aspects, which is really the heart of the proposal. Even as I said it, something uncomfortable was settling in my stomach. Sarah nodded slowly, her expression becoming more serious. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to know I'm only sharing this because I respect your work and I think you deserve better. Meridian Industries contacted our firm 2 weeks ago. They were concerned about some inconsistencies in the proposal they received from Morrison and Associates. My heart started pounding. What kind of inconsistencies? The technical analysis was brilliant, clearly the work of someone with exceptional skills and attention to detail. But the executive summary and client presentation materials were subpar, almost amateurish in comparison. They wanted to know if the same person had worked on both parts. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. What did you tell them? We didn't tell them anything, client confidentiality, of course. But we did some research on Morrison and Associates. It's not the first time there have been questions about whose work was actually being presented. I felt sick. 5 years of late nights, missed family gatherings, sacrificed weekends, all so Morrison could present my work as his own. And now, on the most important pitch of my career, he was planning to sideline me completely. Marcus, I want to make you an offer right now, right here at this gate. Full partnership at Whitfield, Sterling and Partners. Starting salary of $400,000 plus equity, plus bonuses. Your own team, your own clients, and most importantly, credit for your own work. For $100,000. That was more than double what I was making at Morrison and Associates. But more than the money, it was the respect, the recognition, the chance to actually build something meaningful. I would need to give notice to my current firm, I said, though my mind was already racing ahead to what this could mean for my future. Of course, standard 2-week notice. But Marcus, there's something else you should know. Sarah glanced over at Morrison, who was now openly eavesdropping on our conversation. His boarding pass crumpled in his hand. Meridian Industries specifically requested to meet with the person who created the technical analysis. They're not interested in working with Morrison and Associates if they can't guarantee that person will be the primary point of contact. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Morrison hadn't demoted me to coach to cut costs. He had done it because he was planning to present my work without me, to claim credit for months of my effort, and to cut me out of the biggest deal of my career. Ms. Whitfield, I accept your offer. The words came out before I had fully processed what I was saying. But as soon as they left my mouth, I knew they were right. 5 years of being overlooked, undervalued, and now betrayed had led to this moment. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the partnership agreement when we land. But first, I think there's something you need to do. She nodded toward Morrison, who looked like he might be sick. I walked over to where Morrison was standing in the first-class line. His face was ashen, and for the first time in 5 years, he looked genuinely afraid. David, we need to talk. Marcus, I don't know what that woman told you, but you need to remember your loyalty to the firm. To me. I gave you your start in this business. You gave me my start, And then you took credit for every success I've had since. I kept my voice calm, professional, even though I wanted to scream. The Henderson account, the Morrison methodology that's actually the Chun methodology, the Meridian proposal that you've been planning to present without me. Morrison's composure cracked completely. You can't prove any of that. And you have a contract, a non-compete clause. You can't just walk away. Actually, David, I can. Because Whitfield, Sterling and Partners has better lawyers than you do, and they've already reviewed my contract. The non-compete clause doesn't apply to partnerships with competitors, especially when there's evidence of intellectual property theft. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. I've been documenting my work for months, David. Every email, every analysis, every late night spent developing strategies that you presented as your own. I have timestamps, file histories, email chains, everything. Morrison stared at the phone, then looked back at me with something between rage and desperation. You can't do this to me, Marcus. Not now. Not with Meridian on the line. I'm not doing anything to you, David. I'm finally doing something for myself. I looked back at Sarah Whitfield, who was watching from a respectful distance. I'm going to New York, but not to help you steal credit for my work. I'm going to meet with Meridian Industries as a partner of Whitfield, Sterling and Partners. The blood drained from Morrison's face completely. They won't meet with you. You don't have authority to negotiate on behalf of another firm. Actually, I do. Sarah had approached and was now standing next to me. I took the liberty of contacting Meridian this morning after I confirmed that Marcus would be joining our team. They're very excited to meet with the actual architect of the restructuring plan they've been reviewing. Morrison looked between the two of us, his career and his reputation crumbling in real time. This is corporate espionage. I'll sue both of you. David, there's nothing to sue for. Marcus created the work on his own time, using his own expertise. You have no legal claim to his intellectual property, especially not when you've been misrepresenting authorship to clients. Sarah's voice was calm but firm. I suggest you focus on explaining to Meridian Industries why the presentation they were expecting won't be happening. The first-class boarding announcement played over the intercom, and Morrison mechanically walked toward the gate. His shoulders slumped in defeat. But I wasn't watching him anymore. I was thinking about the future, about building something real, about finally getting the recognition I had earned. As we boarded the plane, both of us in business class, sitting across the aisle from each other, Sarah shared more about Whitfield, Sterling and Partners. The company culture was built around employee development and recognition. They had a profit-sharing program that actually shared profits. They encouraged work-life balance and provided support for continuing education and professional development. During the 5-hour flight to New York, Sarah explained how her firm operated differently from traditional consulting companies. Instead of the pyramid structure where senior partners extracted maximum value from junior associates, Whitfield, Sterling and Partners used a collaborative model where everyone benefited from the firm's success. Marcus, at most consulting firms, associates like yourself do the bulk of the analytical work, develop the strategies, and create the presentations, while partners primarily focus on client relationships and business development. But here's the problem with that model. It creates an artificial separation between the people who do the work and the people who get the credit. She explained their innovative approach to client engagement. Every project team includes associates at the partnership track who work directly with clients from day one. When we present to a client, the person who developed the analysis is the person who presents it. Clients appreciate this transparency, and associates get the recognition they deserve. The profit-sharing structure was equally revolutionary. Instead of keeping most of the profits at the partner level, the firm distributed bonuses based on individual contributions to projects and overall firm success. Associates who brought in new clients or developed innovative solutions that could be applied to other projects received substantial bonuses on top of their base salaries. We also have a mentorship program that actually works, Sarah continued. Every associate is paired with a partner who has a vested interest in their success. Partners are evaluated partly based on how well they develop their ments. It creates incentives for collaboration rather than competition. The professional development opportunities were extensive. The firm paid for associates to attend conferences, pursue additional certifications, and even complete advanced degrees if they were relevant to their work. They had partnerships with business schools that allowed employees to take evening classes at reduced rates. But Marcus, the most important difference is cultural. We hire people who want to build something together, not people who want to climb over each other to get to the top. It creates an environment where everyone is invested in everyone else's success. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? Sarah said as we settled into our seats. The flight attendant had just finished the safety demonstration, and we were preparing for takeoff. Of course. What kept you at Morrison and Associates for so long? With your skills and work ethic, you could have moved anywhere. I thought about the question as Los Angeles disappeared beneath the clouds. The rain had stopped, and patches of blue sky were visible between the gray. I think I kept believing that hard work and loyalty would eventually be rewarded. I kept thinking that if I just proved myself a little more, worked a little harder, stayed a little longer, Morrison would finally give me the recognition and opportunities one deserved. And what changed your mind? Today, seeing Morrison try to humiliate me, realizing that he was planning to steal credit for my work one more time, understanding that no amount of loyalty or hard work was going to change how he treated me. I finally realized that I was never going to get what I deserved from someone who didn't respect me. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. You know, Marcus, in my experience, the people who deserve respect the most are often the least likely to demand it. But demanding respect for your work, for your contributions, for your time isn't selfish. It's necessary. The meeting with Meridian Industries went better than I could have imagined. When I walked into their Manhattan conference room wearing my new Whitfield, Sterling and Partners business card, the clients immediately relaxed. They had been concerned about working with Morrison and Associates because of inconsistencies in the proposal, but they were thrilled to work directly with the person who had created the analysis they were so impressed with. The Meridian Industries headquarters occupied 3 floors of a sleek Manhattan skyscraper, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of Central Park. The conference room where we met was elegant but functional, with a long mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs. The walls displayed awards and photographs chronicling the company's 50-year history of growth and innovation. The Meridian executive team consisted of 5 people: CEO Jennifer Martinez, CFO Robert Kim, COO Patricia Williams, VP of Operations Michael Thompson, and VP of Human Resources Lisa Anderson. They had clearly done their homework on both Whitfield, Sterling and Partners, and on me personally. The questions they asked were specific and insightful, demonstrating that they had thoroughly reviewed my analysis of their operational challenges. Mr. Chun, your assessment of our supply chain inefficiencies was remarkably accurate, said Jennifer Martinez. But what impressed us most was how you identified solutions that other consultants missed. The dynamic routing system you proposed for our distribution network could save us millions annually. Robert Kim leaned forward, his expression serious but interested. The financial projections in your analysis are aggressive but well supported. Can you walk us through your assumptions about implementation timelines and potential obstacles? For the next 2 hours, I presented my comprehensive restructuring plan with a confidence I had never felt at Morrison and Associates. This was my work, my analysis, my strategic vision, and I could defend every recommendation with detailed supporting data. There were no awkward moments where I had to defer to Morrison or pretend that someone else's insights were driving the conversation. The breakthrough moment came when Patricia Williams asked about change management strategies. Mr. Chun, restructuring on this scale inevitably creates anxiety among employees. How do we minimize resistance and maintain morale during the transition? I outlined my approach to organizational change, which emphasized transparent communication, extensive training programs, and incentive structures that aligned employee interests with company goals. I had learned from the Henderson Project that successful restructuring required buy-in at every level of the organization, not just approval from executives. We would implement the changes in phases, starting with pilot programs in select regions to demonstrate effectiveness before rolling out company-wide. Each phase would include comprehensive training, clear communication about benefits, and feedback mechanisms to address concerns quickly. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Meridian Industries was ready to move forward. The chemistry between the consulting team and the client was exactly what you hope for in these situations. Mutual respect, shared vision, and confidence in the proposed solutions. The contract was signed that afternoon. $15 million over 3 years, with Whitfield, Sterling and Partners as the primary consultant and me as the lead partner on the account. It was the largest single contract I had ever been part of, and for the first time my name would be on the signature line. That evening, as I sat in my hotel room overlooking Central Park, my phone rang. Morrison's name appeared on the screen, and after a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Marcus, we need to talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "David, there's been no misunderstanding. There's been a revelation. Look, I know you're upset about the seating situation, but that was just a minor logistical issue. We can work this out. I'm prepared to offer you a promotion, a raise, whatever it takes to bring you back." I looked out at the city lights, at the millions of people below pursuing their dreams and building their careers. "David, it was never about the seat on the airplane. It was about 5 years of taking credit for my work. 5 years of promises you never intended to keep. 5 years of treating me like I was expendable while relying on my expertise to build your reputation." "Marcus, you're being emotional. Think about this logically. We have history together. I mentored you. I gave you opportunities. You gave me opportunities to make you successful while keeping me in a position where I couldn't threaten you. But you know what, David? I'm actually grateful. If you hadn't tried to humiliate me at that airport, I never would have had the courage to leave. I would have kept accepting your breadcrumbs, hoping for a seat at a table where you were never going to give me a place." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Morrison spoke again, his voice was different, smaller somehow. "So that's it? 5 years means nothing to you. 5 years means everything to me, David. It means I know exactly what I'm worth, and I know exactly what I deserve. And I deserve better than what you were willing to give me." I hung up the phone and didn't answer when it rang again. 3 months later, I was settling into my corner office in the Whitfield, Sterling and Partners Los Angeles location. The view from the 32nd floor overlooked the entire city, from the Hollywood Hills to the Pacific Ocean. My name was on the door, Marcus Chun, partner. The transition to partnership had been smoother than I expected, but more challenging than I had imagined. Sarah Whitfield had been right about the company culture. Everyone was genuinely invested in each other's success. But with that support came higher expectations and greater responsibilities. As a partner, I wasn't just responsible for my own work anymore. I was responsible for developing other associates, bringing in new business, and contributing to the strategic direction of the firm. The Los Angeles office was smaller than the New York headquarters, but no less impressive. Located in a modern high-rise in Century City, it occupied 2 full floors with open collaborative workspaces, private offices for partners, and state-of-the-art conference facilities. The design emphasized transparency and accessibility, glass walls, open sightlines, and common areas that encouraged interaction between team members at all levels. My corner office was more than just a status symbol. It was a workspace designed for collaboration. One wall was covered with whiteboards for brainstorming sessions. A comfortable seating area provided space for informal meetings with team members. The large desk had room for multiple people to review documents together. Everything about the space reinforced the firm's philosophy that good consulting came from collective effort, not individual brilliance. The team I had built was small but exceptional. We had poached 2 senior associates from Morrison and Associates, people who, like me, had been undervalued and overlooked. Jennifer Park had been one of Morrison's top performers, but her innovative approaches to process optimization had been consistently ignored in favor of more traditional methodologies. David Rodriguez had developed expertise in technology integration that Morrison had never fully utilized because it required investments in new systems and training. We had also hired 3 recent graduates from top business schools, young professionals who were hungry to prove themselves and grateful for the opportunity to work in an environment that valued their contributions. Unlike at Morrison and Associates, where new hires spent their first year doing basic data entry and administrative tasks, our recent graduates were immediately included in client meetings and strategic planning sessions. The collaborative approach was producing remarkable results. Our projects were completing ahead of schedule and under budget. Client satisfaction scores were consistently high. Most importantly, we were developing innovative solutions that other firms weren't offering because we encouraged input from team members at all levels rather than relying solely on partner-level experience. Our client list was growing rapidly. Word had spread in the industry about our approach to consulting, thorough analysis, innovative solutions, and most importantly, honest communication with clients about who was doing the work and how it was being done. We were building a reputation for integrity that was attracting clients who had grown tired of the smoke and mirrors approach of firms like Morrison & Associates. Sarah Whitfield stopped by my office one afternoon in late fall. The California sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and I was reviewing proposals for 3 new potential clients. "Marcus, I wanted to check in with you. How are you settling in?" "It's been incredible, Sarah. I never imagined that work could feel this fulfilling. When you know that your efforts are recognized, when you have a real voice in decision-making, when you can build something that reflects your own values, it changes everything." "I'm glad to hear that. When I approached you at LAX that day, I was taking a big risk. Offering someone a partnership after a 10-minute conversation isn't standard business practice." I laughed. "I was wondering about that. What made you so confident?" "Honestly, it wasn't confidence in you, though your work spoke for itself. It was confidence in Morrison. I knew that if David Morrison was trying to push out someone of your caliber, it meant you were a threat to him. And anyone who threatens David Morrison just by doing excellent work is exactly the kind of person I want on my team." "So you knew what was happening with the seating situation?" "I had a pretty good idea. Morrison & Associates has a reputation in the industry, and it's not a good one. They're known for burning through talented associates and taking credit for other people's work. I've been watching their employees for years, waiting for the right opportunity to recruit someone who was ready to make a change. That evening, I drove home to my new apartment in Santa Monica. It was a modest place, nothing extravagant, but it was mine in a way that felt different from anywhere I had lived before. I had bought it with my partnership bonus, and every month I made the mortgage payment with money I had earned through work that was recognized and valued. As I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over the Pacific, I thought about that rainy morning at LAX airport 6 months earlier. At the time, Morrison's attempt to humiliate me had felt like the worst thing that could have happened to my career. Now I realized it was the best thing. Sometimes the biggest opportunities in life come disguised as our worst moments. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. And sometimes the people who try to diminish us end up doing us the biggest favor of our lives by showing us exactly what we're worth and exactly what we deserve. I had spent 5 years trying to earn respect from someone who was never going to give it to me. Now I was surrounded by colleagues who valued my contributions, clients who appreciated my expertise, and a professional environment that rewarded merit rather than politics. My phone buzzed with a text message from my sister in San Francisco. "Saw the article about your partnership in Business Weekly. Mom and Dad are so proud." "We all are." I smiled, remembering all the family dinners I had missed, all the weekends I had sacrificed, all the personal relationships I had neglected while trying to prove myself to Morrison. Now I had a career that allowed me to be present for the people who mattered most, while still pursuing professional excellence. The next morning, I received an email that made me pause. It was from a junior associate at Morrison & Associates, someone I had mentored during my last year at the firm. Her message was brief but meaningful. "Marcus, I just wanted you to know that your story has inspired several of us here. We're realizing that we don't have to accept being undervalued. Thank you for showing us what's possible." That's when I understood that my experience at the airport had been about more than just my own career. It had been about standing up for principles that matter: respect, recognition, and the right to be valued for our contributions. It had been about refusing to accept less than what we deserve, even when that refusal requires us to leave our comfort zone and take risks. The consulting industry is small and word travels fast. Within a year, Morrison & Associates had lost 6 of their top performers to competitors. Morrison himself was struggling to maintain his client base without the people who had actually been doing the work that built his reputation. I never took pleasure in his struggles, But I did take satisfaction in knowing that actions have consequences, and that people who build their success on the backs of others eventually face the reality of what they can actually accomplish on their own. As for me, I was building something different. A team where everyone's contributions were recognized. A client base built on trust and transparency. A career that reflected my values rather than compromising them. Sometimes people ask me if I regret staying at Morrison & Associates for so long, if I wish I had made the change earlier. The answer is no. Those 5 years taught me exactly what I didn't want in a career. They showed me the difference between being busy and being valued, between working hard and being respected, between loyalty and self-respect. Most importantly, they prepared me to recognize and seize the opportunity when it came. If Sarah Whitfield had approached me 5 years earlier, when I was still believing Morrison's promises about future promotions and recognition, I might not have been ready to take the risk. But by the time we met at LAX airport, I had learned enough about my own worth to demand better. The story doesn't end with dramatic revenge or Morrison's complete downfall. Real life is rarely that neat. Instead, it ends with something more valuable. The quiet satisfaction of building a career and a life that reflect your values. The daily joy of work that is recognized and respected, and the confidence that comes from knowing you will never again settle for less than what you deserve. That rainy Tuesday morning at LAX airport, I thought my boss was humiliating me by making me fly coach. I didn't realize he was actually giving me the push I needed to soar first class for the rest of my career. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to us. We just have to be ready to recognize the opportunity when it arrives, disguised as our greatest disappointment.